Hi, we're at the Norwell Council on Aging. It is Friday. It's April the 28th, 2017. My name's John McGilvery, and we are interviewing, and what's your name?
Dorothy Dixon,
Dorothy Dixon. And when were you born, Dorothy?
1922.
Okay. Let's see, I am actually the videographer, and so let me ask also, your branch of service, the branch you served in
The
military-
Navy.
In the Navy.
Right.
Okay, good for you. So, Dorothy, let me ask, where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in Malden, and then we moved to Arlington,
Okay.
and so I stayed in Arlington.
And would you consider Arlington your hometown?
I would, yeah, because that's where most of my childhood was.
Okay. And then what was your highest level of schooling?
I graduated from high school.
Okay. And when you joined the military, where were you living?
I was living in Roxbury.
In Roxbury.
Yeah.
Okay. Jeez.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people, I think, moved to Roxbury back in the old days.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, now let me ask something. Why did you join the military?
Well, I don't know. I worked for the telephone company,
Yeah.
and there were two other girls and I, and we were talking about it, and we decided, yes, we'd go in the service. We'd all go in because they were saying they needed people for communications. And so the three of us went in. The other two girls went out west, and they went to yeoman school. And I stayed in, and they sent me to Washington, D.C., and working in the mess hall.
Wow. And so they chose not to utilize your good communication skills.
Not at that time.
Not at that time.
No.
Okay. Now, what did your family and relatives and friends think of you joining the military?
Well, it was okay. Mom and Dad had a sign because I was under 21.
Yeah.
And they thought it was okay, because everybody, during World War II, everybody was so very, very, we got to do something for the war. We got to do something for the war. So everybody was pro-American, shall I say,
Yeah.
not like today.
Yeah. And let me go back. When did you enlist in the military? Do you remember what day or year that you enlisted?
I enlisted in April and went on active duty on May 18th, 1943.
Okay. All right. So the war had been on for a little bit of time
Yes.
at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, tell me, what were your first days in the service like, Tell me a little bit about them.
Let's see. Mom and Dad took me up to South Station. We had a 9 a.m. train to New York. We were going to go to Hunter's College. That's where the barracks was. We left at 9 o'clock, and I think we got into New York around 8 o'clock at night. And they fed us our dinner. They gave us a sandwich on the way, and an orange and a bottle of milk. I can remember that very vividly because it was a ham sandwich with no mustard, no nothing on it. And then when we got to Hunter College and we had dinner, the dinner was liver, which I hate. And I have never eaten it since. Yeah.
You can't put enough onions or
No, you
anything
can't.
with that.
But my husband, after I got married, my husband loved it.
Yeah.
But if he wanted liver, he cooked it himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. And Hunter College, I think that's one of the women's colleges.
Yes,
so,
it is. Yeah.
Right. Well, when you went to boot camp, that's
Yeah.
what Hunter College was
Well, it was a
considered your
boot camp,
boot camp.
right.
And when you went there and you went on the train, you went as part of a group or you went as an individual?
No, there were, well, we all just met at South Station, but
Right.
that train was for recruits.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. I understand. Now, when you got down there, I suppose you had some drill instructors that you would have met. People that would have been training you.
Oh, yes, yes.
Mm,
We had petty officers
Yeah.
and everything.
What were they like?
Oh, they were good. Except we had for our teaching us how to march and everything.
Right.
We had a little Marine sergeant. We used to call him Waxy, and he was a little guy.
Yeah.
I never realized that. I always thought, you know, when I was young, that Marines were great big strapping people, and when I saw him, I just couldn't believe he was a Marine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He might, I'm wondering if he had a little chip on his shoulder being...
Well, I think maybe he might have had a chip on his shoulder because he had to train women.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeez. So, did you ever see that movie with the women that played baseball in World War II and Tom
yeah.
Hanks was the coach?
Yeah.
I think
yeah.
he had a little chip on his
In
shoulder.
fact, we had that woman out here at the Council on Aging.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had, I can't remember her name right now, but she played in that. And she
Wow.
told us about the movie and everything.
Wow. I'll tell you, those were the days.
Yeah.
But now, boot camp must have been what we considered boot camp. That must have been quite the experience where you're meeting women from, all over the place, and you're learning to get along and lack of privacy, things
Right.
like that. How did you cope with that?
Well, I don't know. It really didn't hit me because I think when I was younger, we used to go up to Canada.
Yeah.
And of course, when we went up to Canada, up to Hopewell Cape, the rocks and everything, and they didn't have indoor plumbing or anything
Sure.
like that. So I sort of got used to it. And, they did have the indoor plumbing, of course, at Hunter College, but you might have to take a shower with 2 or 3 other girls at the same time,
Right.
and things like that.
Sure. Well, listen, after you finished what we would consider boot camp, where did you go? Did you go for additional training?
No, they sent us, the government works in reverse sometimes.
Yeah.
So they asked you where you wanted to go. And at that time, nobody told us, don't tell them where you want to go, tell them where you don't want to go. Well, I told them where I didn't want to go, but that's where they sent me, Washington.
Oh, my
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why. I had never been to Washington, but I just didn't want to go there.
Well, it was on the East Coast, and you might want to have seen
Yeah.
the world, and so what was what today we would call MOS, a military occupational specialty? I guess we'll just call it your job assignment.
Well, okay. My first job assignment was the mess hall. So they put us out on the back dock. The back dock, you brought all the supplies in, you took all the supplies out, the garbage and everything else. So I did 1.5 years of that. Yeah. But I got in charge of the back dock. Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But that would have brought you up into late 1944 by that time, I think. So then did you get a second job after that?
Well, then I think it was about 9 months after I went down to Washington, they built a new wave quarters over in Arlington, Virginia, and we overlooked the Arlington National Cemetery. And that's when I went in as communications.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you finally started using some of things you learned with the phone company.
Right, right.
Okay. And so Washington would have been what we consider a permanent duty station for you.
Right.
You spent pretty much your whole military career
Between Washington and Arlington, yeah.
in Arlington,
Virginia.
Virginia.
Yeah.
Yes. So, as a result, you were never assigned to a war or combat zone.
Well, we weren't allowed.
Yeah, unless of course you considered Washington a combat
Yeah,
zone.
well, it really was.
Maybe it
No.
could have been.
Women were not allowed unless you were a nurse or
Right.
had some specific
Right.
thing that you did, you know, like work on airplanes or fly planes or things like
maybe
that.
translate
Yeah.
or something. Yeah. Okay. So then, as a result of your training in your military service, did you receive any medals or anything like good conduct or anything
Oh,
like
I
that?
think I got good conduct.
Yeah.
I should have if I didn't.
Yeah. Well, listen. Can you tell me about some of your most memorable military experiences?
Well, I got very friendly with a girl, Allie Mae, from Mississippi. And she had come up to my house when she had leave and spent the leave with me and my family. So then the next leave, I went down to her house. And that was a very different experience. You've seen the things probably about Tobacco Row, about the woman
Right.
on the porch walking with a pipe out of her mouth and everything. Well, that's the way Allie Mae's house was. There was no facilities. If you had to go, you went out in the field. There were no outhouses, no nothing. So I learned then that there's a very different mode of living for people in the United States. And I could never have imagined that before that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, that was eye-opening.
it sure was.
Wow. Well, let me ask you now, on the other hand, what about humorous experiences in the military? Did you have a few laughs here and there?
Oh yeah, we always had a good time. There are a group of us, just like everything else, you know,
Yeah.
there's a group that gets together and
Yeah.
goes out to eat or goes here or goes there. We had a chance to go and see all the monuments that were there and everything. And we had a lot of time off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Do you have any specific memories of any humorous event?
Well,
Nothing that will get you in trouble.
that's
telling me,
what I'm
you know.
thinking. If I told you this one,
Yeah.
it would probably get me in trouble.
All
So
right.
I'm not
Well,
going to get.
yeah. Then we'll stay away.
We will forget about
We'll
it.
stay away from that.
Right. Right.
So, when you were in the military, did you stay in touch with your family? And were they very supportive? And
Oh yeah.
did they send you little care packages
Yeah.
or anything?
Well, I think at that time I more or less sent them care packages
Okay.
because that was a bad time for them.
Yeah. Well, for the whole country,
And,
just prior
yeah.
to the war.
And of course, I was the baby of the family, and they were always worried. Are you okay? Did you do this? Did you do that? And all this. So we kept in. I called them probably every week, sent home my little bit of $18 a month.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, that was nice of you.
Yeah.
You know? But, sending that money home, I'm wondering, you mentioned you did go and see monuments and stuff, but how did the people, you and the people in your unit, entertain yourselves? Were there USO shows? Were there, how did you guys keep yourselves entertained?
I really can't remember any USO shows in Washington.
Oh,
And I can see why. I mean, they were out all around.
all around the country.
Yeah, and overseas and everything. Yeah. And I can remember, like, every once in a while, Tiny, when I was in the mess hall and everything. And I was in charge of the back dock, you know.
Wow.
And the back dock was, as I say, bringing everything in, bringing everything out. And I said one day, gee, I'd like to take something home to my mom and dad. So he gave me, at that time, you know, we didn't have yellow butter. We only had white, and then you had to mix it all together to make it yellow.
Yeah.
So they gave me some of the yellow butter.
Is that when the oleo and that type of stuff, margarine, oleo and
I
stuff
don't
came into
remember having
existence?
oleo.
Yeah.
All I remember is the butter and the yellow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because, you know, that's a long time ago, John.
Well, I'm also thinking, you know, it's a good thing you didn't have larceny in your hat, you know, being in charge of the back dock
Right.
there. There's some stuff that might have disappeared,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So we won't comment on that anymore.
Oh, I can tell you,
Yeah.
one time, we had some new people that came into the mess hall and into the galley. And we were having chicken that day, and they had the new people doing the chicken and everything. They did the whole batch of chicken with all the insides in it and baked it.
Huh.
So they had to throw everything out and start all over.
Oh,
Yeah.
jeez. Now listen, you mentioned you were able to travel with your friend May.
Allie Mae, yeah.
Allie Mae. Now, did you get to go on leave and travel any place else, or did you go home much, or what did you do when you had the opportunity to go on leave?
I went home.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That was the first time really that I had ever been away from home by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, how old were you at that time?
I was 20 when I went in, but I was 21 the next month.
Yeah.
But Mom and Dad had a sign for me.
Yep. Okay. And you know, I'm wondering. You know, I have to ask. I'm wondering, did you experience or see any incidents of things like discrimination or anything
no.
like that?
No,
Okay.
I don't think that we even had that word then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how'd you get along with your fellow comrades? And you know, you must have made some close friends while you were in there.
Oh yeah, I had Florence from New Hampshire. We stayed friends for a long time, and she's deceased now. And of course, Allie Mae, I had gone down to her house again. And Skippy. And Skippy was a little girl that had never seen the Atlantic Ocean.
Wow.
I had her over to my house on leave one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, those must have been some good times then.
Oh,
you know? Yeah. Now, do you remember the day your service ended? What was that like? And what was it like? I mean, did you ever sense you knew when you were going to be discharged or
Right.
separated? What was it like leading up to that? And then what was it like that day when you were finally separated from the Navy?
I think all I could think of is, oh boy, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just said so long to everybody. I can't even remember whether we had to get our own transportation or whether they brought us back to Boston or not.
Yeah. Did you take a train or a bus?
I think we must have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then your family must have been excited to see you.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They were there at the South Station waiting for me.
Wow. And so, what did you do in the days and weeks following your separation? Did you go right back to work? Did you decide to go to school? Did you just take it easy?
No, I went back to work. I think I took a whole week off. And I went back to work.
Wow. And what was that like? What did the people in the phone company have to say?
Not too much. It was an altogether different group of people.
Yeah.
Because, of course, they had learned more about the telephone company while I was gone.
Yeah.
So I had to more or less, learn. And, of course,
Right.
then we had the ones you put up and everything
Right.
and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
And did you stay with the phone company, or did you move
Yeah,
on to?
I lost my voice for 6 months, so they retired me.
Oh,
I mean, that was after I was in, boy, I don't know. It was up in the 70s, I think.
wow.
Yeah,
So you actually stayed with the phone company
yeah.
for many years.
yes.
And it was only after a long period of time that you found your voice,
Yeah.
fading.
Yeah, but they wouldn't take me back.
Oh, that's too bad. When you came home, did you find it difficult to adjust to civilian life?
No.
Your family and friends were very accepting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you think that maybe having been in the military changed you at all?
Well, I think it helped me grow up
Yeah.
because I had not been away from the family or anything.
Yeah.
And I was more or less, well, I've been away now, I can take care of myself.
Well, plus the fact you would assume some leadership position,
Right,
I mean,
right.
for one thing, you're in charge of the dock,
Right, yeah.
So,
And then after I got through with the mess hall and I went over, I was the chief operator over on the switchboard over in Arlington.
so yeah, so
That was
right.
something because
Yeah.
we had the day that the war was declared over.
Yeah. Now, since then, since the end of your military service, I'm wondering, have you ever utilized the Department of Veterans Affairs, be it for medical care or to maybe buy a home or the GI Bill for school, anything? Have you ever used the VA?
Well, I went over, they had a women's clinic over at Brockton. I went over there, used that for a little bit. Of course, at that time, in the VA, you had to be service-connected
Right.
disability to be, helped by them. I didn't have any service-connected disability, thank God. And so I didn't use them that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, back then, I don't think they did a lot for the women veterans.
No, they didn't have
Right.
the women's section then.
Right.
Yeah.
I think today, in 2017, they're doing a lot more
Oh,
to
yes.
help the women veterans.
Yeah.
But back in 1945, 46, I don't think they were doing much. I think in doing these oral histories, I'm not supposed to be editorializing. I
Right,
should just
right.
be asking the questions, but
That's all
I
right.
want to throw that one into it, the mix here. And in terms of veteran services, do you know that every city and town in Massachusetts is required to have a veteran service officer?
Oh, yes.
And have you ever been to the veteran service
Well,
officer?
I was the veteran service officer in Norwell for 35 years.
God bless you.
Yeah.
I knew I heard that name
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that's a good thing because, in doing these oral histories, one of the things I want to determine is not only the people's personal oral histories, but how much they know about veterans' benefits and services. So that's I'm glad to see that you are on the ball there. Now, have you stayed friends with any of the people that you were friendly with in the military?
Well, it's kind of hard now because I think most of them are gone.
Yeah.
That's the trouble.
Well, prior to this, I mean, over the years, over the, 50 years or so, did you, maintain any type of contact, maybe send cards at the holidays or birthdays?
Yeah. Well, as
or
I
whatever?
said, like Florence,
Yeah,
her last name, I can't even remember, but she married. She had 4 or
Right.
5 kids, and she married a veteran. She lived in New Hampshire, and I stayed very close to her. I can't think, and as I said, Skippy and the other people.
yeah.
But other than that, I just get back into life at home.
Okay. And now, what about, in terms of a career after the military? I know we spoke about the phone company, but you also worked as a veteran service officer. And
Right.
were there any other jobs that you did?
Well, yeah, let's see. I did a lot of volunteer work on the Council on Aging and for the town of Norwell and different things like that.
I have a list that I'm going to get to in a few minutes.
all right.
You have a plethora of things that you've done. So, and I wanted to know, do you think that having served in the military helped you prepare for and be successful in your civilian careers?
I think so. I think being in the military on your own and everything, it gives you a confidence that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to elaborate a little bit more, can you talk about how having served in the military affected your life?
Yeah, yeah. If I hadn't served in the military, I wouldn't be in the American Legion,
Yeah,
and that's one of the big things in my life.
yeah,
I've been in it now for 74 years, I
right,
think, and I've accomplished an awful lot. I was the first woman commander in the state of Massachusetts, and well, I was first commander of my post in my district and so forth. So that, it built confidence in me that I wouldn't have had otherwise.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and you've done some other things. I mean, you've been with the Chamber of the Norwell Chamber of Citizen of the Year from
Oh, yeah.
the Norwell Chamber of
Yeah.
Commerce.
That was 1987.
Yes, and you've served, where was it, on the Governor's Advisory Board
Oh, yeah.
on women veterans.
Right.
And you did that for, 1984 to 1991, I believe.
Right.
So that's an awful lot of commitment there. And
I'm still on it, I think. They put me honorary.
Yep. So I don't know, there's just so many different committees and organizations that you've served on, and and as you've said, if you had not been in the military,
Right.
you might not have had the confidence or
Yeah.
whatever to serve on them, and
Right? I wouldn't have.
and certainly you wouldn't have been in the American Legion,
No.
which.
No.
And I know the Legion is both proud and honored to have had you as their, I think, first female state commander.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
And this year we're going to have our first female national commander
that's true.
coming up in August. Yeah.
Right. So, I think with that, to wrap this up, is there anything that you would like to add that we haven't covered in this interview?
Well, I can't really think of anything.
All right. Well, in that case, I'm going to thank you for your service to your country while in the military and your service to both your community and the Commonwealth since you got out of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
All right.